situations of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to
might have had a nuke.
bless America.
Well, we don't know. There was this unexplained seismic event out right where they own their testing facility.
Yeah, because one of their donors like owned a field or property
exactly.
or something. That's
and
right.
there was an unexplained seismic event that didn't make any sense given the topography or anything. Just out of the blue, little earthquake tremor right where they had property. It's never been explained to this day. And they were actively pursuing a nuclear weapon. They might have tested one.
Do you think they summoned Godzilla?
Yes.
Is this Cthulhu?
Why not?
Anyways, hello, fuckers. Hello,
Hey, what the fuckers?
pod damn morons.
We call our fans fuckers.
Piss pigs.
Dammers? Would that be good?
You podcast
Dammers.
pigs.
That sounds like a Puritan sect, the Dammers.
Yeah,
That's
Dammers
cool.
is pretty cool.
And badass.
I
or
like
like
that.
a biker gang. Y'all are the Dammers.
Bring back
There
the
we go.
dental
Lock the
dam.
gates.
Christian-
The dammers are coming.
Christian by Christman right here.
Yeah. Welcome to the show. Hello. I am your host, Jake Flores. I have with me Alex Patek.
Hi.
That's Raghav Mehta.
What up?
Anders Lee.
Anders Lee here.
And special guest from Chapo Trap House, Matt Christman.
Thank you for inviting me to the set of the original Broadway production of Rent. It's really nice.
Oh, yeah.
I got a
God.
song in my heart now.
That's what it is. I thought it was like the place where the Ninja Turtles fight people for so long, but you're absolutely right.
That or where
It's
they
both.
that or where they filmed the Saw movies.
The vibe changes as more and more mannequins leave the room.
This is the place where the Ninja Turtles get AIDS, and then
Do you want to play a game? It's AIDS.
if you've been listening to the podcast and have been keeping track of the government sabotaging this show, our equipment blew up a while back. The AC went down last week. I fixed it, but because we had to live without AC and open the windows for a week, we've just got flies now. So they're just, we're going through the various plagues.
Uncle Sam never fucking sleeps.
Yeah.
COINTELPRO to this day.
If you hear a buzzing in the background, that's just the flies. That's an intended part of the recording.
Anyways, we have a very special episode of the podcast this week. I wanted to do this for a while because I feel like it's kind of necessary to do just a crash course on a very basic introductory level about what neoliberalism is. And the reason I think this is because I've had friends for a long time that I suspect maybe, if they just knew the whole picture, would sort of look at things a little bit differently. I have a friend, Martha Kelly, who's on the show Baskets with Zach Galifianakis. She's a fucking fantastic person, good pal of mine, and very, very sincerely reached out to me because she follows me and is aware of all the political stuff I talk about, and said like, hey, is there like, something you can refer me to that will sort of help me understand when these politicians come out, whether they're, sort of a conservative in disguise or whether they're like a more progressive, because she just was like, I can't tell. And I thought about it and I was like, I could mail Martha Kelly like a stack of books and, a bunch of Zinn and Marx and shit.
But
and
there was nothing to refer her to.
You just send her Alex's tweets.
yeah. There's not really like a good snackable go-to thing, and no one has any fucking time to read all this shit. There's not, a real easy rundown of all this shit, like a crash course, except for maybe like the ABCs of socialism. But there's just two types of people that are motivated by what's good about socialism, and people who are motivated by what's fucking horrible about neoliberalism. And I think that's
The two
That
genders.
book is also a little too vertical.
yeah.
It's like a recipe book.
It's not fun to hold.
No.
It's not
Too
funny
tall.
either.
Too tall.
Yeah.
Too tall.
The good thing about this show
Great
is that
drawings.
we're angry, So I think that we should think of what we're going to do today as this micro, encapsulation of what, like, the history of how we got here through neoliberalism, what that is, and why it's affecting everything right now. As like, I've been thinking of it sort of as like a chick tract. Like if I was out in the street yelling, at my dammers, my weird political cult people.
It's the word we're using now, dammers.
yeah. This is what I would want to give people, is one of those weird religious fundamentalist comics that you get handed that's like, oh, I'm going to hell, but instead of it's because of the devil, it's because of Jeff Bezos or whatever.
Yes, perfect. He looks just like the devil did in those chick tracts, by the way, if anyone wants to look. Dead
Yeah.
ringer. Just put the little horns on the side of his head.
He definitely looks like he just shaved those off.
Yes, He sands them down every morning.
He hid his devil sticks back in his apartment.
Yeah.
Would it be painful to shave horns? Let us not cover it here.
And before we get into the good stuff, there's the preeminent neoliberal event happening
Yeah.
on July 21st and 22nd in Central Park called Ozyfest.
Like Ozyfest?
Ozyfest, but one Z.
Ozyfest.
What's weird?
Featuring Hillary Clinton, Passion Pit, Chelsea Handler.
I don't think it's real.
I think
It's real.
Okay, well, they haven't revealed the headliner, and the only logical conclusion is that it's Dr. Oz.
My name.
I'd say Donald Trump.
Bills itself as part music festival, part TED Talk, part
Kill
food
me.
fair.
Murder me with a fucking trident.
They'll fucking do that there.
Please.
It costs $50. It's going to take place again late July in fucking Rumsey Playfield. Tickets cost between, wait for it, $79 and $306.
Oh my God! Can you imagine? Can you fucking imagine paying good money to stand in a sun-baked field in Central Park in the middle of fucking July, your brain is baking, so that you can watch Steve Pinker come out in his fucking bozo clown wig and tell you, everything's going to get really good in the future.
Yeah, you're just
What
watching.
is wrong with you?
And Malcolm Gladwell
Like
comes out,
Malcolm Gladwell comes out and says, "How is everybody tonight?"
it took you 10,000 hours to afford this festival.
It's like if Skeletor fucked Chase Manhattan Bank. Monster.
Yeah, Roxanne Gay and Salman Rushdie
Oh, can
will
you
do
imagine?
a duet.
Can you
Tony
imagine?
Tony Gonzalez is one. Is that the former
Yeah,
Kansas City Chiefs
the
tight
former
end?
tight end.
What is he gonna? He
The
must
greatest
maybe
tight
he's gonna
end
talk about
in-
concussions.
I believe the greatest tight end
Martha
in NFL
Stewart,
history.
Yeah.
Laverne Cox.
Martha Stewart DJ
Martha
set.
Stewart, what's she
second
gonna
night?
fucking make macrame on stage while you're all hot and covered in flies and drinking a $12 beer?
The like advertisement for it looks like the Coachella ad that everyone makes fun of. It's like marketed like this music event outside festival of the summer, which only leads me to believe they expect us to be on Molly, culturally appropriating, wearing those Native American headdresses, like best summer of our lives, man.
You're paying this money so that you can watch Alex Rodriguez come out and presumably rank all of the nation's chain steakhouses. Like, what the fuck else is Alex Rodriguez going to do? Well, Ruth's Chris is always the best, of course, but it's also the most expensive. You might want to consider that. Fleming's is now underrated. And Outback, you know what? It's better than you remember it was.
You staying up for Clinton, man? Oh, fuck. I hope she persists.
I'm chilling at Ozyfest.
And then we have Jake Tapper, who that's another big
Oh,
question.
yeah. He's going to come out and just put on a big screen all of his retweets of veterans. Because that's the thing he thinks. That's, to him, when he does that, that is his yearly public service. That's him going to a soup kitchen, I'm going to respect the troops all day. I'm not going to have a second hot dog. I'm going to stay inside in the air conditioning, and I'm going to retweet troops. That's it.
And it's also a weird thing from him, because his whole shtick is like, well, I don't know if that's a good answer, but I'm going to move on anyway.
Yeah.
And then, like, he does this one, like, thing where he's supposed to be sincere and it's just kind
And
of,
he
like,
also
irksome.
steps out his dick every year because he'll hey, how about this picture of my uncle? And it's Reinhard Heydrich, and he's too fucking stupid to even know. Oh yeah, Charles Whitman for sure. Timothy McVeigh, all troops. And then so every year he just gets owned, and of course, and because he's such a simpleton, and he'll just reflexively retweet any uniform that comes across the transom.
You know what Jake Tapper is, though? He's a straight man, and you need that for Chelsea Handler to really pop off.
Yeah.
She needs someone to bounce off of.
Two
It's Albert and
mushrooms.
Costello.
Two mushrooms and
Albert.
respect the troops this
Yeah.
summer
Respect
in
the
Central
fucking
Park.
troops. Do it.
Yeah.
Implied guest, the troops.
Whatever you eat, leave a chair open for the troops.
You just see a full
Just
arena.
like every
with half the
other
chairs.
seat is filled.
This is a troop.
This really does kind of make sense if you've been to a lot of music festivals, because as the reason they're growing so hard is there's underlying economic reasons for it and stuff, and they become
That's the only way you can make money as an artist anymore.
yeah, and so they become more and more corporate, and eventually just take the music out of it, just make it about lanyards and secret passes and shit and like
you're
levels.
basically taking all the people who always show up there as VIPs behind the seats and watch it. It's just like if you dropped the fucking the drapes and it's just you get rid of the performers, and it's just the people behind, the fucking VIPs who show up and watch the performance, and now you get to look at them because they're the real controllers of society.
This is like when you go to Bonnaroo, if you just stayed in the Citibank hydration tent.
Anyways, Ozyfest, the cultural event of the summer. Don't miss it, guys. We'll be performing in the parking lot, unofficial. We're just big fans of the fest.
We didn't want to bring it up, but they paid us a lot of money.
Should just make fun of them. So other podcasts can go and buy tickets and try to make fun of it, and
it's going to make Woodstock 99 look like Woodstock 94.
Oh, I hope it.
Thank you, Passion Pit.
I hope it looks like Woodstock 99. Fires break out.
Yeah, I'm hoping for more of an Ultimate feel, if you know what I mean. Hope some Hell's Angels showed up with sawed-off fucking pool cubes.
It's like the real headliner, Limp Bizkit.
So let's work backwards. How did we arrive at a future hell world where there's a festival headlined by Hillary Clinton that cost $9 million to go to?
Yeah, you can imagine the scene of, remember the story from this week about the guy who was desperate, who got a random check from an unknown bank offering him a short-time loan, and he wasn't going to do it because of the high interest rate, but then his truck broke down and it really undermined his life. And so he was like, I have to do something, so he cashed the check, and then soon enough he ended up owing thousands and thousands of dollars in interest and court fees to this company that persecuted him, that was controlled by Tim Geithner, our former Treasury Secretary. Imagine the scene of that guy getting, his fucking truck repossessed, and it freeze frames, and there's a retro stretch and says, I bet you're wondering how I ended up like this.
Yeah.
Goes back to
boom.
The feudal system of ownership.
Enter the first act of Dan Carlin's Softcore history. This one's for children.
Just kissing.
It's blurry, and you can watch it when your parents fall asleep.
Shannon Tweed history, not Jenna Jameson.
Yeah, there's no penetration in this history lesson. This is
no lube, no penetration.
Yeah. So I think that to pull the lens back real hard, you got to kind of look at the origins of what is known as liberalism, which is the very thing that I think people don't understand both of our major parties subscribe to. There's a bit of a misnomer, and we tend to think of liberalism and conservatism as these two things that are opposite each other, but really they both fall under this huge term.
Jake,
big capital L.
They're on the same branch.
I've heard liberalism is when you won't buy a chicken sandwich because it's not gay.
Yeah, there's this great tweet earlier this week where this person, did like a weird inspired thing where they said, liberalism gave you the vote, liberalism gave you equality, liberalism gave you inalienable rights. Liberalism is the enemy of tyrants, and I'll be forever proud to defend it. And then it gets a bunch of retweets, and then you cut to their first reply a day later is just like, whatever, man, I'm not being owned.
The response to that, though, the instant one is liberal also gave you slavery.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's like these things are all entwined within the same political and economic genealogy. And so it gave you the good stuff, but it also gave you the stuff it was responding to. It gave you slavery and Jim Crow.
Yeah, and the basic reason that there's this huge misnomer and kind of gaslighting of people is that in this country we no longer have an understanding that the left and the right are divided by pro-capitalism and anti-capitalism. People that kind of believe Cold War bullshit don't ever phrase it as America was fighting against communism, against socialism, and pro-capitalism. They always pit it as democracy versus socialism, which is not. Those two things aren't on other ends of a spectrum. They're you're talking about two separate things, right? So I guess in order to understand that, we go back to feudalism and all these various revolutions that happen, around the 1600s, 1700s, even like our own in America.
Reformation, one of the most important of those, of course.
Yeah, and a lot of them are very individualistic. So the roots of what we call liberalism is, it's based on these, French philosophers and these people that they tell you in school here, well, these are the people that came up with the concept of you having freedom altogether. But what they were really theorizing was, individual freedom for landowning white men, etc. It's not an across the board thing at all. And that's where the split comes from. I guess I'm trying to figure out how to bridge the gap between that happening and then later on Marx sort of understanding that and then more socialist revolutions happening and us not really understanding that those two things are like those are the right and the left.
Mm-hmm.
Conflict when liberalism was starting was between this old system of monarchy and thinking of the god as this ever-present force and everything, and then you have that's the first conflict, and then when the 1800s comes in and Marx, that's where the new conflict is arising, and it's still going on today.
Yes, because what liberalism does is it essentially what it is a project of uprooting. The liberalism takes the feudal subject who is embedded in and he is not defined by his identity or himself. He's defined by his relationships. He's defined by a web of connections to other people. He is holistic. The liberal subject is an individual, is a monad, is unconnected to others, has no other definition other than his own, there's no way that connections to others increase any sort of sense of reality for that person. That person is fully defined as an individual being. That's what liberalism says. It power washes, like imagine a bunch of ball bearings and they're covered in like caked dirt and mud. And the mud is our connections to other people and institutions and systems of belief and the things that make us full human. Liberalism is basically a fucking giant hose that says that, no, those connections don't make you who you are. You are a self-contained being. You are not connected to others in any meaningful sense. And then what liberal political theory is at base, it is figuring out how to make these individuals that can no longer relate to one another by context, can only relate to one another as individuals who have no other outside context. How can they relate to one another in a way that doesn't lead to death for everything? A cooperative existence. Liberalism is how to negotiate the distance between people that liberalism created in the first place.
Yeah.
With transactions.
Yes. It turns human relationships, all human relationships, into transactions.
Yes.
And that is the difference between that and the feudal subject. And so that is the world that liberalism and conservatism and fascism, all these things, and also communism come from, is that the demystification of the self created by the uprooting from feudal traditions.
What I would say is liberalism does not see you as stones held together by mud. They see you as individual stones being sprayed with the hose and then put into my bucket. I sell stones.
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
starting a stone business.
It turns
and
us
it doesn't
all
sound like there's a big turnaround, but there actually is if you go to the right places where they don't have stones.
Because if you don't have human connections, the only way to resolve a conflict between total strangers that are alienated from each other's existences is through combat and through conflict. And liberalism says, well, that's not workable. Everyone will eventually be destroyed in Ragnarok. You have to negotiate these transactions and the distances, and that's what liberalism does. It creates the institutions for that. That is why the most parasitic and vital petty bourgeois profession that glommed onto capitalism as it broke from feudalism is the legal trade. It's law. Because law is what grew to fill in the spaces left by the erosion of social ties. Because you need law to negotiate these new relationships between strangers that have no understanding of obligation to one another. That is that transmission, the language of it is law. And so that's why I always find it funny for the people who want to say, oh, Marx's concept of the French Revolution as a class war of the bourgeois is wrong because most of them weren't merchants, most of them were lawyers. Obviously, because that is the most vital profession to the creation of a liberal state, because you have to figure out how all of these strangers, all these people who are implicitly holding guns on each other in a constant Mexican standoff, how can they lower the guns and deal with one another? That's what the legal system and that's what liberalism created.
Yeah, well said. And I think that individualistic nature of it is also something that in America right now is people don't really understand that as the enemy because it is a stepping stone from moving from feudalism to then hopefully eventually getting to a more collective thing, but because it's this halfway point that was sort of developed by people that then wanted to still maintain their own power, it's still it's anti-solidarity in a lot of ways, and it's really funny because when you watch like a Pepsi commercial or something, what do they tell you? They tell you this is all about you. Pepsi is about you and your experience,
Right.
and these fucking music festivals and Capital One trying to tell you you have some personal relationship with your credit card that makes it about you, and these things are all I think arrived at celebrating that as a really basic American value as a byproduct of us getting away from solidarity and any way being connected, not being atomized. Like they're trying to tell you being atomized, being individuals separate from each other is somehow a virtue.
Exciting. That's why people fall for it. They're like, I'm Capital One all this time?
It's like a video game.
I worked at the store.
It's like a video game. It is a fantasy of endless interaction and control over a universe. That's what they sell you. And then you spend your whole life being brutally constrained in ways you can never see, but you're still interacting as though it were this limitless fantasy that the pseudo version of it sold you.
And
when you're just capital. Yeah.
I might pose though that liberalism, for its time, that time was still a I think we can say positive step in the right direction.
A positive and necessary step. Has to be assumed.
Right. And
because communism grows out of liberalism.
Absolutely. But
so you can't break apart the two movements.
And
One
there are
makes
things
the other.
about individualism and the individual that we don't have to necessarily reject.
Yes,
we can bring that as like that. Yeah, that is a growth, a good positive growth out of the Enlightenment, but it can go too far. Hyper-individualism.
Devil's advocate, let's bring kings back.
We can't mend what's broken there.
I don't mean like CEO kings. I mean like kings.
Those
holy
connections
kings.
cannot be rebuilt. You have to deal with the individuals we've created. The bag of marbles. We can't really imagine.
We're not going to just
get them back
worship
together.
King Solomon all of a
So
sudden.
we could take the most humanistic strand of liberalism to emerge from it. The thing that came out, fascism and classical liberalism and neoliberalism, they all sprouted out, and then socialism sprouted out, and that is the most humane of the dealing with the crisis of creating liberalism in the first place. It's the most humane. It's the best solution. So we should embrace it as such, as the most humanizing version of a liberal world. That's what it is.
And the Pokemon evolutions of the superstructure, socialism alone has the Firestone.
Absolutely. No, the heart. It literally is the only one with the heart. Because it's the one that centers
Pokemon
humans.
Is very valuable.
Because it's the one
that
that centers humans meaning anything. Because it's the one that is defined by human terms. Because the alienated version, the liberal version, the Nazi version, the neoliberal version, atomizes that and destroys it. And so you don't have that heart anymore. You only relate to each other as theoretical beings who mean nothing to you because their suffering is not your suffering. So you can allow anything to happen to them. And that fatal undermining of trust and solidarity between people eventually, under pressure, obliterates the whole project. So the heart is what you need. Is that humanism that only socialism can reproduce out of the fabric that was destroyed by the end of feudalism.
So how do we tie this into our part of the story? We're at Karl Marx?
Yeah, let's talk about Marx. And so how then this thing branched off through him to eventually communism. Because as Marx was sort of observing the French Revolution, he came up with, this theory where, as, we've discussed before in the show, he's sort of articulated something that was probably just buzzing in the air at the time, which is understanding of, your world as a situation where there are two inherent classes. There's workers, and then there's people that don't have to work, and then there's this myth that we still believe today, which is that you have a mobility between those two classes, and he sort of theorized very correctly this thing that led to unions, which is that if you the workers are able to not be fucking marbles that are disconnected from each other, if you are able to grab onto each other and form a solid wall or a solid force, then you can sort of correct that inherent imbalance that happens when the owner of your factory, is living in a way that just makes them more and more rich while you are lied to and told you can too, right? So that's the basis of communism, and it's I guess what's interesting to me is that then, like you were saying, if you look at the end goals of all these ideologies of liberalism, of feudalism, of socialism, of communism, you're right, socialism is the only one where it ended up being a theory where all of society's institutions worked towards the good of people living in society. The rest of them are statist. Or in the case of like feudalism, it's for the king,
Right.
God and shit.
And it's also predicated on moving us to another system, socialism.
Yeah.
It's one of the only branches out of that liberal
Well, you
tree.
could argue
Yeah, the rest
feudalism.
have a death drive.
Yeah.
The rest point towards extinction and
Yeah.
heat death. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. It wants to move on.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's-
That's a state, though. Like, annihilation's a state.
Well, that's the thing is that that's the real distinction between neoliberalism and fascism. Is the fascist death drive is conscious and it is a direct attempt to get to obliteration, whereas the neoliberal death drive is more sort of passive and it's just sort of towards entropy as opposed to towards like spectacular annihilation.
Yeah.
It's like fascism is an aesthetic annihilation, and neoliberalism is sort of just a dryly physical
An Aum
annihilation.
Shinrikyo on training wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascism is a case in which, like, it's Trump will just tell you he wants to fucking kill somebody, but with neoliberalism, you need Zizek to come and decode everything for you and tell you what the symbols in these fucking
We'll have a
movies
woman
mean.
tell you that.
I mean, neoliberalism is imbibing from the same poisoned cup of fascism, of annihilation and death to all, but with the veil of sort of faux ignorance put across its face. So at every point, it will embrace the same ends of destruction and dehumanization, but it will always choose the option that gives it the greatest amount of plausible deniability and imagining that they're not complicit in it. And that's the only real meaningful distinction. And it's like it's basically like morals as we understand them are essentially an accumulation of ways to obscure one's stated and secret desire that one doesn't want to confront. That's what morals are. It's just like a bunch of barnacles on top of that urge.
There is a distinction too that I think that I remember confusing me, similar to the kind of the left liberal one, which is anarchism and communism. I think we grow up in the United States thinking of just opposites, but this kind of new alternative, leftism, radicalism, whatever you want to call it, that new alternative to liberalism. Ultimately, those things are kind of the same, right?
Yeah. No, they bend towards the same direction, and all of the strategic sort of suggestions for both strands is towards the same end. So yeah,
They're both a counterpoint to capitalism, but one being completely horizontalists, like there shouldn't be a state with hierarchy, and the other one communism.
I mean,
Eradicating all
they're
infrastructure,
two virtuous goals, sort of pulling the mass in one direction that hopefully will resolve between the two in sort of a compromise that's sufficient for both. It's not too far one way or the other in terms of.
Well, good thing that they figured it out and they
egalitarianism or
never
annihilate.
fight with each other online or anything.
No, well, that's the thing. It's like all the online political conflict is completely cosmetic and meaningless because nobody is fundamentally different from anybody else in their practical politics. None of them are like tanky, sock dem, tanky, anarchists. None of those are meaningful categories. They don't describe anything that makes these people different. What they describe are different posting styles. They're just different ways to describe different types of poster within the left Twitter ecosystem.
This should be the parties. Should be shit posters, sincere Facebook, long diatribes.
Sincere Facebook caucus.
But that thing is that the political landscape is so dire. People they flee to the fantasy realm, and so that's where they try to make their politics felt, is in this fantasy world.
Yeah, and we talk about this a lot with technology leading to this alienation that's ultimately like, oh my god, we've never felt this weird before or whatever. But I think it's important to look back through history and realize, like, no, I mean, during the Red Scare, that was exactly as insane on a lot of levels. Like the McCarthyism in America was like Pizzagate on a level. It was.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like
and that it didn't happen.
At the farthest end of it, you had the John Birch Society accusing General Eisenhower of being a Soviet spy. That was the Obama is not from America thing of like the 50s. That was like the post-war conspiracy theory that sort of the rest of them all spring from, is this idea that there's a foreign agent at the heart of your conception of what your country is. And they invented that with Eisenhower as a spy. And that was the farthest mainstream expression of that paranoia that was created by that time.
It's the mark of a turn when they identified our spy.
Yeah.
Did he ever produce the long-form birth certificate?
Not to my knowledge. I haven't seen it. Not to my knowledge.
He's from Kenya. I knew it.
It was a bald wig all along, too.
Michelle is a man.
So let's move a little bit further into, let's say we've understood that there are these different sort of ideological revolutions, and we live in the one that is hyper-liberal in the U.S., right? Well, at some point around 100 years ago, there were all these different people working through all these different states, working through all these various different evolutions, trying to get to what's the ultimate goal, right? Which what is going to be best for whoever, society itself, or the fucking government in that society, or the state, or whatever. And something I think is really interesting, a lot of people don't know, is and if you read fucking Howard Zinn, you'll get all this stuff. If you're lucky enough to read that shit in high school, you come back and be annoying about it for a year, and then it becomes part of your diet or whatever. But
subscribe to Howard Zinn's podcast,
the Zinn Chronicles, yes,
Patreon.
But there was a real socialist movement in this country, and there also was a way a friend of mine, Luisa Diaz, has been on the show before, sort of explains it. The thing that she always says about it that I find really interesting is that the big reason we have like cultural amnesia about like socialism and shit like that is because of sort of World War II and this idea of we created like a fake memory past after that of like, oh, it's always been like this. But like if you look at the way people's lives were structured in the turn of the century in the fucking 1910s, you probably could relate to those people on a lot of levels. Like a lot of the criticisms people have of millennials now, oh, they're baseless, they don't know what they're going to do with their lives. Well, that's what life was like before then. Or back then, before we created these myths of like everyone's always going to live in these suburbs forever and sort of be part of this middle class that is just like a thing that you're just supposed to understand will last forever and always has been around.
Peak empire culture, 1950s stuff we all take for granted.
High modernism.
Yeah. So there was Eugene Debs, who was the presidential candidate that almost won as a socialist.
About almost won. He
won.
In our hearts.
He would have won.
He would have won. He would have won.
Yeah. He won the
If there was no
popular
one else.
votes.
Yeah.
Extended culture war.
So
Yeah.
Susan Sarandon, Jill Stein.
Goddamn Al Jolson.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know, like, Helen Keller was a socialist. That's a really funny story. As she was a socialist after she learned to like write and everything. She would like put out papers and stuff about it, and was a writer in a local newspaper. And after she started writing about socialism, at first they were like, "Wow, we've got this genius Helen Keller. Like, she's such a smart person, such an inspiration." And she starts talking about socialism, and they're like, "Don't listen to her. She's like clearly mentally fucked up."
She can't even see.
Yeah, she's blind. What are you thinking?
She's never laid eyes on the Statue of Liberty. She could never understand what that means. Of course, she's a Bolshevik.
She can't hear the sound of a hard
She can't
day's
even
work.
see the races she's supposed to hate.
She was a tanky in her days. She was
Really?
pro-Bolshevik. Yes.
Hell
You
yeah.
would think she
Yes.
would be kind of the perfect liberal subject because she is very much,
But the thing is that the complete vulnerability of that.
Yeah,
You're
totally.
because we are all deeply and inconceivably indebted to each other every moment of the day for each other's existence in ways that we cannot even count. But we don't notice it because we're overwhelmed by stimuli or whatever. Because her vulnerability was so stark, she could only see how vulnerable she was and how much she needed other people in order to live. And that made her realize everyone is as interconnected with one another as that. Everybody is as in the debt of the other as that person. And so we're all bound to each other by that, and that made her a socialist.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Man, she would have been so good at shit posting. It would have taken her like fucking 10 hours to get one out,
Helen Keller, go on Cumtown.
You get auto-corrected, you're basically fucked. You never notice.
Yeah. She's got a wacky Twitter name and shit. So, something I think is kind of interesting around this time in America, in terms of if we're trying to understand and decode for people that are gaslit a little bit and maybe not understand this, is like, well, okay, how did Republicans and Democrats become these two parties that are two sides of the same coin, right? Because there was this leftist presence actually in America for a while, and then there was William Jennings Bryan, and he was sort of like kind of was responsible on some level for like fusing the Republican and Democrat. Am I getting any of this?
Can I interject?
By the way, interrupt me if I'm getting this wrong.
Okay, yeah, because there is an active left movement in America in the 19th century, early 20th century, but it was never part of the Republicans or the Democrats.
That's what I'm
whenever
saying.
they tried to break in, they were pushed out very forcefully.
Well, what the two parties have a system where they take the energies of emergent parties and absorb them with like Star Killer Base from The Force Awakens. And that's what happened. The Populist Party was an independent third party in the prairie west of yeoman farmers fighting against the eastern interests and big money. And they became vastly influential until there was a fusion where Williams Jennings Bryan was the joint candidate of the Populists and the Democrats. And after that, the Democrats just ate it. They ate the issues, and they became that party. And that's what happens with third parties. They get too close to, like, the big sun, and they get sucked into the black hole.
A similar decline with the Socialist Party.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
well, that and, I mean, the thing that really killed the Socialist Party was the Bolshevik Revolution. Because the existence of Soviet Russia created a threat that was so visceral to capital that it countenanced violations of liberty that it wouldn't have conceived of otherwise. It created a state of emergency. And so the fucking Socialist Party was brutally suppressed as soon as the Reds rose in Russia.
We're all
in order to stop them. And it worked. Debs went to jail for his anti-war speech. Bill Haywood had to flee to Russia. Emma Goldman was deported. And it was a clean sweep, the first Red Scare. A clean sweep of activist communists in America because of this new threat, this dark star of socialism that was going to destroy America at any moment, and it's what allowed them to get away with doing this. And then the fascism shows up, and fascism becomes such a vital threat to what we perceive as the good part of liberalism that it actually, kicks in this big response that creates this solidarity between the Soviet Union and Western capitalism, and that's when you had the Popular Front, and there was this idea that the Soviets were good guys, and there were all these communists in arts and in high levels of government who thought the Soviets have figured this out, we're going to do this together. And then after we defeat the Nazis, the threat immediately goes to our biggest enemy, which is the emergent Soviet Union, and all of those pathogens that have infected our culture, they get attacked by the white blood cells of patriotism, and they go, well, you were connected to the Soviets during the war, and you were in this organization that was connected to the Soviets over here, and you were in this group. And that was where the second Red Scare came, this antibody kick-in to flush out the pathogens of socialism that had been infected by the alliance with the Soviet Union to fight the Nazis. And that second Red Scare is what set the stage for neoliberalism. Essentially, it's like, how they say you shouldn't do too much you don't want to drink anything that's going to kill too much of your gut microbes, because once you get underneath a certain balance, like you're undermined, like your homeostasis is undermined, and then the other thing could kind of take over and you become sick. It's the same thing. We got rid of so many of like the good liberal socialist, humanist antibodies or things in the bloodstream that there was no defense against this rampaging fascism that came back. First in the form of neoliberalism, and then once crisis hit, now, neo-fascism. That's where it came in, because we destroyed our antibodies. We destroyed our resistance to this pathogen, and it just took over, starting in the 1970s specifically.
Or, for a simpler Star Wars analogy, when fascism arose, we see an alliance between unlikely parties like Luke Skywalker and that big cow that he has to suck the tits of in the movie. And that's what socialism is.
That big cow is Jeff Flake.
So, post World War II, post popular some parts
how's
of
World War II went?
Well,
We won!
Oh, fuck yeah!
Helen Keller won.
yeah, this twofold thing kind of happens with what is left of leftism being absorbed into the Democratic Party, and then also what's left of it on its own being pushed out. So it kind of gets cut in half, you know. What I'm getting at is through the 70s there was like the decline of unions, and you had someone like Jimmy Carter sort of realize, maybe he was one of the first big ones in my mind that realizes that he can sort of run in this Democratic Party that is banged up and not really a thing anymore, but is the other party. He kind of ran as a progressive, but then
ran as just like a ray of sunshine. Like,
yeah.
You had no.
People didn't know you could do that before.
Well, yeah, they would ask him, like, what's your foreign policy? And he'd be like, my foreign policy is as good as the American people.
Oh,
like,
fuck.
that was
He
what
just
would
played
say.
Donovan
Yeah.
and dance,
yeah. So let's move forward a little bit as we get to through the 20th century to where we are. Another big component in how we got to neoliberal hell. Well, two things. First, let's go through like Reagan and just extreme Koch brothers libertarian capitalism. I think everyone should probably read the shock doctrine at some point in their lives because it shows
it's happening right in front of like Puerto Rico, and Naomi Klein has written a book about this. It's just literally everything in that book is happening right in front of you.
Reagan gets into office and he's this ultra capitalist, and he has trickle down theory, which is this theory that capitalism itself will inevitably cause society's ills to be fixed. It'll improve society. He's very upfront about his insane beliefs about capitalism.
Just to tie this into what we were talking about before, Reagan comes in early 80s, right after the Carter presidency, because surprise, running on good vibes doesn't actually feel anything progressive.
That's exactly what it was. Is because the thing that happened is while Reagan is rising, people say, well, Reagan rose, the Democrats fell, and the reason for that is because the Democratic message is no longer appealing to American voters, and so therefore they had to change it. That's the holy writ. This is the underlining theory.
Get a cowboy.
And what had happened under Carter, though, is that the engine for Democratic voter engagement that made them a viable party and that made their numbers, because they were always more people who were Democrats than Republicans, mean anything, is that they had this economic policy that helped the average worker, and they were identified with that policy ever since the New Deal. The Democrats were the party of your paycheck. They were the party that was going to help you out, make things easier for you. And, that was at the cost of, obviously, a Jim Crow New Deal and racism. But, to the white working class, it was a deal. You do this, and we give you your vote. And it fell apart because the economy shuddered to a halt worldwide in the 70s, and the U.S. was no longer able to hold on to the economy as the driving force of it. They had to be one part of others, and that's when Nixon got off the gold standard. We all became part of like just a global connection of states that are on relatively equal footing, as opposed to the U.S. being the hegemon. That was the end. And so now that's going to create civil instability, because that outward expansion is what was keeping everything peaceful. We kept paying out money. We were dividing it up evenly between capital and labor. But then it got smaller and smaller, but the capital wasn't going to give up their slice. And so they had to undermine the force that was asking for anything, and that was labor unions. Because by starting the process of neoliberal reform, by doing the first wave of financial and economic deregulations, Carter undermined the entire connecting tissue between his working class voters and the party. And so as the population increased, the natural constituency of the Republicans increases. The Democrats are stuck because they're not connected anymore. They don't have a power source driving their continued political engagement, because why are you going to vote for them? They're not going to deliver what they had always delivered. All they're going to do is be a set of cultural signifiers that, because I'm from the Midwest or I'm a white male or whatever, I don't relate to. So I'm not going to vote for them because their cultural signifiers are bad. But that's because that's the only thing I can vote on, because they no longer present an economic alternative to the neoliberal hastening hell we're getting.
So they, at this point, sort of stand for nothing because, as you said, they lost that connective
and so
tissue.
It became a cultural war, and we've been living in cultural politics ever since. And that has favored the Republicans, because the resentment of white, sort of entitled middle-class voters is very entrenched and more solidified. It's not as divided as that of other areas, other groups. So they have a unified belief, and they've been smashing through the walls and making sure they hold on as long as possible to this cultural superstructure, because they've given up any hope of changing the material relationship, which is just annihilating every connection.
So something I think is important is around this time, as the Democratic Party is sort of losing meaning, and as the right is like pushing real hard their sort of mythos, their myths about culture. This is when we start to get to where like people believe in the concept of like
the Bible.
Yeah, this is when people start to believe in like welfare queens and stuff like that, and they've weaponized the idea of resenting other people, and it's all through this individualistic ideology.
Yep.
It's all about like these people are going to come and they're going to throw off this delicate balance that we have with like minimum wage. This is what they say. This is why they're so anti-immigrant. This is why they're so like individualistic, because this thing they're selling the concept of being a Reagan cowboy, fucking like a lone shooter and being, somebody who really believes in the American ideal of you just living your life, climbing up the ladder, that is directly anti-solidarity.
When they introduced means testing to welfare elements, that was the end.
Yeah.
Once you create means testing and you create categories of citizen who have different levels of support from the state, you create poisonous resentment that can't be resolved any other way. All programs have to be universal. That's what builds solidarity. That's what builds a sense that everything I give to you, I get back, and that's the sort of the unifying give back that gives base. It's the basis for all social relationships, that we could actually live that way and feel like we are safe.
Yeah, no one ever called anyone the Social Security queen.
Yeah, exactly. And as soon as you introduce means testing, then you have categories of citizens with different levels of responsibility and rights.
Be pitted against each
and
other.
you can decide that the state is the fault of that.
So this
and decide the state has to go away because it was just the free market. It was just the hounds, the ferocious hounds of capital, without any constraining harness. If it just obliterates these sedimentary layers of laziness and privilege, good. I don't care.
Yeah, so this half-assed, form of leftish thinking, if you can even call that at all, that now keeps continuing to lose against the right, just solidifies the right's individualistic ideas more and more and more, which is why then it sort of mutates and has to turn into this thing where when you get to like Clinton, he only is able to win through this thing called the third way, which is like how we arrived at having someone who is sort of, socially, progressive while economically conservative, which is really
socially
an oxymoron.
Socially liberal, fiscally conservative.
Yeah.
By the way, that's my all-time favorite 30 Rock joke.
Yeah.
When Jack
Dennis,
is going up to Dennis to see if he could maybe get him to help his campaign, and he goes, "What are your politics?" And he says, socially conservative, fiscally liberal.
Yeah. It's such a smart joke because so many people in the culture at the time considered the opposite of that to be the smartest
That's like the
thing
default
ever.
thing. Oh, this is how I'm above partisanship and I'm a smart person.
Yeah.
And people still say it all the time.
It's
now.
like, I think for some reason the one that I'm conservative on is the one related to my material condition. That's fine.
Yeah.
Just so happens to be.
One thing
the one
that
that least affects my material being is the one that I'm least worried about maintaining. That's funny. That's odd. What a goof. What a
Well, it allows you to maintain a relationship with your fucking racist dad or whatever, because you can go, I believe in the abstract stuff like you do, I'm just a little bit more evolved. I think gay people should be able to get married and stuff.
That's
and
how
when
you
it
make
comes to
yourself
money,
feel
I'm
like
still racist.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is, though. It's fucking racist money because, the social justice cannot happen without the economic base. It's not just saying that you like a group of people affects them in no fucking way.
I think the problems are bad, but I think all the causes are good.
That's exactly like why neoliberalism is so obnoxious, is because it's a circular fucking argument.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think Clinton, and you might be able to apply some of this to Obama too, really gets at the heart of what people mean when we complain about neoliberalism, because you have someone advocating traditional liberal, in America anyway, policy values, not positions, but things like healthcare, education. But those things his solutions are all market solutions. So they're liberal causes, but the policies themselves are in effect conservative.
It's an unstopped rightward slide from Reagan on. Though.
Yeah.
The words change, but the battleground
and
is
what
just nothing.
and what it really is, and the thing that you have to remember every time you see some seemingly woke expression by a Hollywood celebrity or a Democratic politician who might not be perfect, but they seem like their heart's in the right place, or like any kind of appeal to being reasonable and how you need to compromise, and how we have to be open-minded, how all of those things. It's part of a switch in mindset. Liberalism saw the market as a way to constrain nature in a way that was mutually beneficial. They would say something like, you shouldn't have the state interfere with the market. That's what they would say. It's their short capsule idea. That was liberalism. Then after the crisis of the 70s sort of necessitated this doubling down on all of the more predatory elements of liberalism and letting go of all the equality stuff that made it stable, you see people getting more fanatic in the belief, and it switches from you shouldn't have the state interfere with the market to you can't have the state interfere with the market. The market goes from an element used to make sense of the world to a totalizing concept. The market is everything.
Right,
Everything
yeah.
is within the market, including all politics. And so the state exists, and there isn't a separation. The idea there's a separation is a vanity. It's a fantasy that you're trying to make yourself feel better, like, oh, you're observing fair rules. It's always being absorbed, the state.
Right.
It's always working in concert and in the will of the market, and the market is overwhelming and controls all. So the neoliberal, he doesn't feel a pang like Scott Walker or Rahm Emanuel doesn't feel a pang of guilt about using public money to fund private things that will only accrue profits to private companies, or sell off public assets like the toll, the pay booths. They're fine with that because to them that's what the state exists to do, to support the market. A previous generation of liberals or conservatives would say, no, these are separate entities. They would fool themselves into thinking that. The neoliberal is like, no, we are at the crisis state. They cannot be, this fantasy can no longer be held. Just fucking hit the fucking gas and subordinate the state in all of its ways to the perpetuation of capital.
And that's where I think the distinction is between a neoliberal and someone like a Ron Paul, who would say, like, no state intervention in the market whatsoever. A neoliberal would say, well, we're not against the state. The point of having a state is to facilitate the market.
Yeah, and I think that's
what they're saying is there shouldn't be a difference at all. Yeah,
right. Just by virtue of making more money, that's benefiting society somehow.
Yeah, well, I think in a branding sense, is the way they sell you what they're all about. They got to a point where they had to treat that market idea of it being just, the most important thing as something that has inherently always been true, something that is a core American value. And that's why I think, that's why I wanted to tell the whole story, because if you look back far enough, it's like, no, wait, that's bullshit. But it's just that, if you're a certain age, that just seems, it's a paradigm concept problem. It's something that grass is green, the sky is blue. This worship of market is just the way it's supposed to be. The president is supposed to be a war criminal. Like, all these things are normal. And they sort of, I think, accidentally perpetuated those myths just by being politicians and just saying whatever they needed to say to win and speaking out of both sides of their mouths. Clinton did that, Obama did it, and it all culminated in the fucking bubble bursting and the bottom falling out of it in 2016, when I think that those things just became more obvious, or enough people just threw their hands up and were disenfranchised. And that's why now the examples of this, once you understand it, are so fucking extreme. I mean, that Fearless Girl statue, that argument that feminism now is a woman working for fucking Wall Street or a missile company or whatever. These are extreme examples of the two things.
They think
Kirsten
Mrs. Old.
Kirsten Gillibrand in a speech recently was like, Lehman Brothers wouldn't have happened if it was Lehman Sisters.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mario Brothers wouldn't have happened if it was Mario Sisters.
Gillibrand's so funny because she's so clearly just totally without any principles, but she understands that going to the left is her best bet for 2020, and so she's just so much just tell me what to say.
I love that.
Whatever you want.
Love
It's like, oh, you don't want, what? I shouldn't have endorsed this guy? Never mind, I don't endorse him. Oh, I shouldn't have done this bill where they fucking do drone strikes against BDS supporters? Okay, no, never mind. I didn't.
It's like
She's just like, just tell me what to say. She's like the drill tweet, turning my head towards the audience while holding a big lever that says racism and deciding where to put it. That's her. Just what do you want me to do? Whatever it takes. I want to be president.
Yeah,
She's the only one who does it.
Yeah, her and Kamala Harris are made from that same DNC fucking play, and they're just like, well, what are my analysts saying? What is Twitter saying? Are Twitter my analysts? And just following their fucking lead to the point where they're going to end up in the same spot that Hillary Clinton campaign was, where they're going to be like, well, what does the fucking algorithm say? Because I don't believe
because
it
that
anymore.
hollows it out, and then all of your energy is gone because you don't represent anything anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, I could see a scenario though where they keep that sort of they try to keep their progressive bona fides through the general election if one of them is the nominee. Whereas with Clinton, someone like that, they want to tilt more to the center. But then when they get in office, it's going to be the same shit.
Sure. Well, and so that's why it's something that what's his name, Michael Brooks. I just did his podcast, and I listened to an episode he did on the Third Way, and something that he said I thought was kind of poignant.
More like the turd way.
Boom!
Savage.
Michael Brooks.
Roasted. Your ass got roasted.
Fatality.
David Frum,
Holy
suck
shit, you
off.
have a cat?
Yeah, it's,
I spent hours in this loft. I've never seen your cat.
she's kind
Take
of a
the shit
recent.
out of cat.
She's a recent addition, and she's been mostly laying on the tile floor.
Why my eyes are itchy.
But that weird shit that like Democratic politicians do all the time now, where they're like, well, we have to win over more of these right-wing voters. We can't move farther to the left. We have to throw abortion or whatever under the bus. We have to do all these things. Comes from the playbook they developed, when they were forming neoliberalism.
Mm-hmm.
And now you see them, and this is maybe a ray of hope, maybe not. They're doing the same thing where they're testing the waters and starting to realize, maybe I can win some of these fuckers over who I have hated forever if I say I'm for Medicare for all or whatever. There's a great Onion article it's like about a Gillibrandish character. It's very obviously her, and it's just her going, I guess I'm for Medicare for all now, since you fucking people won't leave me alone about it. It's like really funny. It's written from a very angry point of view, But I don't know. We have this situation now where it's like, yeah, we can pull these people left, but people should understand that they don't want to go that way. We shouldn't have to be dragging a Democrat kicking and screaming into supporting, policies that people clearly want.
See what they voted for.
Yeah.
See what they've said.
Think of it like the
have to
Khmer Rouge. To keep you is no gain, to lose you is no loss.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
fucking get rid of them.
Look
Cut
at it.
out the fake friends in your life. No time for them. No time for fake friends.
Yeah.
On the timeline or in the IRL.
Yeah.
Khmer Rouge,
Khmer Rouge and Drake. That's who you should listen to.
Yep.
they would definitely fall under the sincere Facebook caucus.
Yeah, I'm cutting out all the toxic people in my life. If you're reading this, count yourself lucky.
If you have glasses, fuck you. I'll say it.
Yeah. No, Stalin's Great Purge was the first Goodbye to Fake Friends tour.
If we could just briefly, because I'm thinking like people are listening and they're hearing like socialism, communism, like maybe briefly talk about what we mean by that and how it differs from what was all happening on the other side of the world with the Soviet Union. Why? And I think that's like what turns a lot of people off from.
Sure,
The
absolutely.
Red Menace.
What I'm
Yeah.
trying to do with this show is identify that split
Totally.
and explain it to people.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
please,
Episode
if
one,
you know
The
how to
Red
like,
Menace.
if you got something to speak to about that, go for it.
well, like AOC, as we call her, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, was on The View last week, and she had to explain socialism in like a 7-second soundbite. And her answer was basically, if you shouldn't have to be poor. That's a good answer, I think, for that context.
Honestly, that's a great capsule description of like the basic driving concept of it.
I think she should have rapped.
And that's as much as anybody has ever expected to define their terms in politics. Oh
Right.
my God,
Yeah.
politics is nothing if not totally vacuous bromides with no clear definition. Then they just spout them out, and then now all of a sudden she has to fucking get these definitions all of a sudden. But it's okay because these are real concrete things that can be defined quickly. And no poor people is a perfect fucking distillation of it.
Yeah, that's why it's so interesting, is because like it shows you that if your ideology has a goal, you can just answer that question by stating its goal, but you can't do that with neoliberalism, which is why if you ask these people what they believe in, they just trail off about entrepreneurship and
Freedom.
weird compromised means testing about
They all have that Dunwich look, They all have that Lovecraft thing where it just seems like they've spawned from the deep and they've been infected with just a mind virus that cannot be overcome.
But one of their talking points that can sometimes, it's a very simple, stupid point but they'll keep hammering it on you, is this. Well, what about the Soviet Union? What about Cuba? What about all these examples of where people were quote unquote socialists? And like quickly, like why is that not actually what Marxism is? What socialism is?
My answer to that would be that most of these states, like Venezuela, for example, is like probably their favorite one to throw at you. It's like, oh, look at this clearly failed experiment here. It's really hard for them to really make that argument feasibly because all of these States are also the number one driving factor in how things played out in their governments is the American government. So, if you look at Venezuela, like so much of their economy was based on oil, yeah.
The word is oil.
What's it called?
It's called ore.
Say the words.
Chavez is
Like
I don't need to tell you I'm an oil man.
Here's your
afraid
fucking
to say it.
stability, my main man.
But the reason why that throws off the
Texas
argument
tea.
that it's that you tried to start socialism in an isolated place and it didn't play out like
For sure,
in
yeah.
a vacuum.
Yeah.
That's bullshit because the oil was affected by what's going on in imperialism and all this shit.
Right.
Right.
You could
And there-
even argue that the descent into authoritarianism in the Soviet Union starts when the whites have the civil war with the Reds, which is entirely funded by European empires.
Well, that's the context. There's two big contextual things you have to remember with every discussion of the supposed crimes of communist countries in the 20th century. The first is that all of those crimes exist in the context of constant, nonstop, holy war of capital against it, all over the world. As soon as the Soviet Union is created, you have a nonstop, just 5-alarm attack on every front, cultural, military, political, economic especially, to undermine and destroy that nascent communism. And that wherever communism emerges, this vicious fight from fucking, the bombing of Hanoi, which was greater than all the bombs dropped in World War II, the fucking illegal mining of the Managua Harbor with the Sandinistas, the economic warfare, CIA plots, the sort of constant warfare, nonstop, invisible warfare against every aspect of socialism throughout the entire world when capitalism had the upper hand materially and essentially covered the globe with its power and ability to injure at every point. How can you judge anything evenly in that kind of siege mentality where the need to maintain this always attacked exterior is always going to undermine your desire to create like a real humane society, because all hands on deck, you're in an emergency, and that emergency lasted the entire existence of the communist state. And that's the thing that gets forgotten. And then the other one, which is equally important, is that whenever they throw out the big numbers for deaths under communism in the 20th century, 100 million, 200 million, the vast bulk of those are in the USSR and in China and are related to famines created by industrialization. Because it is the process of industrialization was the guiding force and cause of the deaths of the vast majority of those people. In all those famines, some of them, you can argue, some of these people died here other than here because of the actions of the government. But the main thrust is these governments decided that they needed to compete with the West and create industrial economies, because that's what Marx and everything had told them to do. And in doing so, they squeezed 200, 300, 400 years of horrific capital accumulation into 2 generations. And of course, those numbers are horrifying. As many people as died in famines in China and in the USSR. But in a slightly elongated timescale, multiples of those people were killed in areas where industrialization was driven by capitalism. The entire every person who died from smallpox and starvation and outright massacre in the conquest of the Americas by European settlers and by imperialism, that's on capitalism's fucking that's on there. Every person to die in famine in India in the last 200 years, a number in excess of 60 million, including 3 million under Churchill's watch, under Churchill's cackling gaze during World War II, putting Churchill on par with Stalin and Hitler as a fucking genocide.
Churchill was fucking horrible.
But you take those bodies, and they dwarf the number of people who died under communism, but because communism is this, you see the hand come in and force these things to happen in a way that Adam Smith's clever invisible hand doesn't get blamed for, even though it's just as responsible for. Communism gets the blame. Capitalism doesn't get the blame for 500 million killed in colonialism and imperialism and slavery and all of that.
It's almost like it doesn't make sense to be arbitrarily counting these numbers.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Them on a graph.
It's debate team nerd bullshit, which the internet has turned into a religion.
And
That's
it's
the
also
new fucking faith.
It's also important to point out throughout history there have been the early Soviet Union. There have been examples of development in a communist direction that were sustainable. The first, I think, 7 years or so, they had the new economic program that wasn't driving people into starvation. They were actually using capital to some extent.
And in the middle of that, they were being attacked on all sides
Yeah.
by all the Western powers and a collection of white Russian armies, all of which were headed by fucking anti-Semitic, like occult Nazi psychopaths,
Right.
who were pogroming every Jew they came in contact with. If they'd won if they'd won that civil war, you could have had the Holocaust 20 years earlier in terms of the destruction of European Jewry.
Mm-hmm.
That is how horrifying the armies of the white resistance were during the Russian Civil War. And they were there at every moment, undermining every gain they made as soon as it was made. There was a guy in Mongolia, Unger Sternberg, who considered himself like the last reincarnation of the Buddha and had a fucking cult army, like some psychotic, like Mongol Jim Jones. And he was out there chopping people's heads off. As part of this resistance that was supported by the United States and the Great Britain and Japan and all the civilized countries. That defined every element of the Soviet experience.
Holy shit.
And harkening back to your example of Venezuela, and then that's now what you're hearing from establishment Democrats and neoliberals about, in light of the Ocasio win, and that's what you heard in 2008 when Obama got elected.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like horseshoe theory is real, and liberals subscribe to it.
Yeah.
I mean that facetiously, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. So I think that was a rather ambitious crash course through the 20th century. I think hopefully we might have helped connect some dots into how we're now in a hell world where, where fucking social justice is, working for a bank, where we've got all these leftover vestiges of these broken up parties and ideas laying around, and it's becoming very obvious. Now hopefully if you listen to this and you couldn't before, you can identify a neoliberal idea. One thing I wanted to add that is about these politicians, and why, to answer my friend Martha's question, how can you look at one of these people and decode whether they are actually working in your interest or whether they're a career politician, whether they got money, and whether they say like their own version of dog whistly shit, like friend of the show Natalie Shore pointed out very astutely one time that a phrase that you need to look at and ping real hard is when they talk about healthcare, and they use access to healthcare. Exactly.
These aren't the droids you're looking for, like a mind spell.
It's such an underhanded thing, but if they don't say Medicare for all, they don't say single payer or whatever, they don't
That's
say
a big red flag.
Yeah.
But really, the best thing is, it's very easy. You can just follow the money.
Exactly.
Like Crowley versus AOC, you didn't have to listen to a thing they said. You didn't have to read a single mailer or watch a debate. All you needed to look were the fucking disclosure sheets. AOC, small donors, individuals. Crowley, every fucking scumbag bank and Dracula factory on Wall Street, fucking vampiric real estate developers, every fucking sucking asshole in the greater New York area was bankrolling his campaign. That's all you needed to know.
Yeah, it's that simple.
This candidate
And guess what? It didn't work for him.
And the thing is that there's all these libs who are complaining. The thing that astounds me is that the reason they get so mad is because they have taken in their head the role of being in charge of the Democratic Party. And so everybody else is a supplicant. They don't see the Democratic Party as something separate from them that they have to influence. They are it in their heads. They're in charge of it. And so they see any criticism of it, of these like ungrateful swarming hordes, because their minds instinctively identify with this institution, which is insane.
Can you imagine like the kind of mental gymnastics you have to go through to assume that you are a party where you never go to a meeting?
Yeah.
Like you're a job
Yeah.
you've never showed
It's
up
astounding.
at.
Like they're engaged. It's not like a mass party. It's not like the Red Guard. It's not like some like mass political movement.
Yeah,
The
no
red
one
shirts
likes
or
it.
something, or the fucking.
Yeah.
It's not the fucking squadristi.
Yeah, they're
Well,
not
it's
the
the thing you
stone
go
cutters.
to every 2 to 4 years and pull a lever.
People-
That's all it is, and yet they've got it in their hearts. That is their identity.
People that are really into like social politics and identity politics and stuff like that seem to understand the word gaslighting and what it means. But when you ask them about politics, it's like, no, clearly I came to these decisions on my own based on nothing other than not being a fucking Republican.
But that's why they kept saying, and they were so mad. Wow, Crowley, he endorsed Medicare for all. He said yes to a $15 minimum wage. There's nothing these people won't demand. And it's like, lady, look at where the money comes from.
Anyways, does anyone have any final thoughts before we get to plugs?
Smash the state.
Yeah.
is a thing.
All right, I
That
like
some
it.
people are into. I'm
Fucking
kind of,
yell at Jake on Twitter.
Yell at me on Twitter. I don't get enough of that
I
shit.
told him "fuck you" earlier today, and I meant it. I know you're having a stressful week, but fuck off, Jake. Follow me, ACLU official, weekly show in Park Slope called Airplane Mode.
can I actually? So the last time we did plugs, I messed it up and said that to the London people that I'm on the 12th of July. It's actually going to be on the 13th.
Oh no!
So by the time this comes out, maybe it's too late.
All
London,
those
where
fans
you at?
out
All
on
those
the 12th
fans
in
on the
London.
12th
You fucker.
at Draper Hall.
You bloke.
It's going to be on the 13th, I believe 9 p.m. UK time. And then I'm going to be, if you're up in Scotland, at any time in August, really, from the 4th to the 25th, I'm going to be doing my one-man show, Dummy, which is a show I talk about the autistic spectrum, and it's funny and fun.
It's good. Watch it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's like eating a bowl of haggis, and it's going to be at Bourbon Bar at 1300 hours every day in August except
It's
Wednesdays.
like a fried Mars bar.
He's
That's
doing
right.
an autistic accent.
I count 500 drop toothpicks.
Alex, you got anything?
Yes, I'm on Twitter at Patak Jokes, and I have a weekly show every Sunday at Sing Sing Karaoke Bar in Manhattan on A and 5th. It's at 7 o'clock. It's called Bad News. It's a comedy show. I put on a suit jacket. I tell you the news. Stand-up comedy happen. And I have another podcast, Ballin' Out Super, where we debate communism in Dragon Ball Super.
Oh, amazing. Matt, you got anything?
Well, I've got my podcast, Chapo Trap House, available on iTunes and related apps. Also available as a premium feed for big dick ballers. Also, we have a book coming out in August, Chapo Guide to Revolution, that is sarcastic. Please don't yell at me anymore. We know it's irony. A manifesto against logic, facts, and reason, and available for pre-order
Buy the
on
book.
the internet. Buy the book, folks. Buy the book.
Buy the book.
Buy the book.
All
Keep
right.
your eyes open on the East Coast for early September. We'll be doing a tour.
Ooh.
Cool. I'm at Feral Jokes on everything. It's an anagram for my name. It's my website, all my social media. On my Twitter, I usually pin my tour dates to the top in my pinned tweet. So if you're ever curious, if I'm coming to your town, come check my social media and specifically that one. And most importantly, if you showed up at this podcast from something I can't quite say out loud that might happen, and this is at all interesting to you, and it sounds new, and it's got your brain bumping a little bit. Something we're going to do with this podcast is, all these stories from history, all these things that may make you think in a way that you haven't thought before. We'll do way more of them. We're going to focus in on specific events inside of this huge fucking tale we just rolled out. We're going to do all sorts of stuff, and if you like it and you want to help support the show and you want access to a bunch of bonus content, subscribe to our Patreon. It's $5 and it gives you, we make an episode a week and we make a second episode, a bonus episode every week. So you'll get that bonus episode and you'll also get access to
Where'd you
everything.
guys get that idea?
I have no idea, Matt Christman from Chapo Trap House. I got that idea when I got really angry that all my friends were getting rich as shit.
It occurs to me that we are literal job creators. And that's very odd.
The
And
irony.
you know what? I demand respect now.
The
I
irony.
am greater than a troop.
The irony of yelling about entrepreneurialism and shit for an hour and then realizing, yeah, that's what we are, baby. We're lying the whole time. This whole thing's satire.
If you're interested in a topic, though, we will have Jake's address in the event description, and you can send him mail.
yeah. You can, make me stuff in your cabin and send it to me, whatever.
Show up at his house when he doesn't know you're coming.
But yeah, and absolutely do listen to Chapo Trap House. It is absolutely, one of the things that inspired me to do any of this shit. They're doing great work, and I'm a big fan.
We're the Velvet Underground
Yeah.
of podcasts.
Everyone started a podcast after that. How's the quote go? I don't know.
Something like that.
That's it. Everyone start a podcast after that.
As Mao said, let 100 podcasts bloom.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye-bye.